From the PEP Radio Newsroom, these are the stories we are covering at this hour. Russian police raided several bars and nightclubs across Moscow on Saturday as part of the government's crackdown on LGBTQ propaganda, state media reported. Smartphones, laptops, and video cameras were seized while clubgoers had their documents inspected by officers, Russia's TASS news agency said, citing sources in law enforcement. The raids come exactly a year since Russia's Supreme Court ruled that the LGBTQ movement should be banned as an extremist organization. Its decision followed a decades-long crackdown on LGBTQ rights in Russia, where President Vladimir Putin has touted traditional family values as a cornerstone of his quarter-century in power. Footage shared on social media appeared to show partygoers being ordered by police to lie on the floor as officers moved through Moscow's Arma nightclub. The capital's Mono bar was also targeted, Russian media reported. In a post on Telegram on Saturday, the club's management didn't directly reference an incident with law enforcement, but did write, "Friends, we're so sorry that what happened. They didn't find anything forbidden. We live in such times, but life must go on." In other news, President Joe Biden pardoned his son Hunter on Sunday evening, sparing the young Biden a possible prison sentence for federal felony gun and tax convictions, and reversing his past promises not to use the extraordinary powers of the presidency for the benefit of his family members. The Democratic president had previously said he would not pardon his son or commute his sentence after his convictions in the two cases in Delaware and California. The move comes weeks before Hunter Biden was set to receive his punishment after his trial conviction in the gun case and guilty plea on tax charges, and less than 2 months before President-elect Donald Trump is set to return to the White House. It caps a long-running legal saga for the president's son, who publicly disclosed he was under federal investigation in December 2020, a month before Joe Biden's 2020 victory. In June, Biden categorically ruled out a pardon or commutation for his son, telling reporters as his son faced trial in Delaware over the gun case, "I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him." In a statement released Sunday evening, Biden said today, "I signed a pardon for my son Hunter, alleging that the prosecution of his son was politically motivated and a miscarriage of justice. The charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election," Biden said. "No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision," Biden added, claiming he had made the decision this weekend. The president had spent the Thanksgiving holiday in Nantucket, Massachusetts, with Hunter and his family. He was convicted in June in Delaware federal court of 3 felonies for purchasing a gun in 2018 when prosecutors said he lied on a federal form claiming he was not illegally using or addicted to drugs. He was set to stand trial in September in the California case, accusing him of failing to pay at least $1.4 million in taxes. But he agreed to plead guilty to misdemeanor and felony charges in a surprise move hours after jury selection was set to begin. Hunter Biden said he was pleading guilty in that case to spare his family more pain and embarrassment after the gun trial aired salacious details about his struggles with a crack cocaine addiction. The tax charges carry up to 17 years behind bars, and the gun charges are punishable by up to 25 years in prison, though federal sentencing guidelines were expected to call for far less time, and it was possible he would have avoided prison time entirely. Lucian Holness woke up to a daunting reality on November 6th. Acute stress led the mix of emotions that struck the transgender marketing manager as they learned President-elect Donald Trump, never a reliable ally to the LGBTQ community and an increasingly hostile figure for transgender Americans, had won a second term in the White House. "I went into this election fully expecting Trump to win," said Holness, who lives in New Jersey and began to medically transition during the pandemic, an experience they called liberating and amazing after a long time spent feeling like something was wrong. Assuming Trump would take the presidency again was a self-preservation tactic, according to CBS News, but it did not necessarily soften the blow. Maybe I thought it would be a closer race than it was, and just seeing how many states we were losing, the immense way that we lost, that really destroyed me, Holness said. And for several days after, I had no hope in humanity. After the election, commentators and analysts suggested Trump's decisive victory against Vice President Kamala Harris was broad evidence of a thirst for economic change across the bright red map of the country. To win, he had punctured the Democratic blue wall and flipped all 7 battleground states with CBS News exit polls indicating he had received support from more of the electorate than ever. Now, of course, that number has dropped to the point that Trump did not win the majority, and this was not a landslide election. So CBS, we fault you on that, but eventually you'll get the swing of how this works. LGBTQ voters were among the only demographic groups that did not stray toward Trump when they cast ballots in the presidential contest this year. Black women also overwhelmingly backed Harris at the polls. Black voters and queer voters understood the assignment in this election, and our assignment was to defeat the great threat to our safety and freedom that Trump poses so that we can fight for what all of us need to be safe and free, said Melanie Willingham Jaggers, the executive director of GLSEN, an LGBTQ advocacy group focused on supporting and educating young people. Willingham Jaggers identifies as non-binary and queer. The LGBTQ community has historically voted Democrat, but unlike most other demographic trends this year, LGBTQ support for the party's presidential nominee rose substantially from 2020. CBS News' national exit polls showed 86% of people who identified as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender voted for Harris, while 13% voted for Trump. Echoing most Harris voters, a majority of LGBTQ plus people said they feared what could happen during another Trump presidency, as do we all. People in the LGBTQ community told CBS News that the recurrence of Trumpism as a tangible affront to their basic human rights. The implications feel particularly urgent to transgender Americans whom the president-elect and his affiliates categorically targeted throughout the campaign. For more information on these or any of the stories we covered, go to the PEP Radio page on the Pennsylvania Equality Project website at paequality.com. Be sure to download the Live 365 app to take us wherever you go. And for Giving Tuesday, be sure to contribute just a little or a lot to help us keep PEP Radio bringing you the latest in LGBTQ plus news. That is the news at this hour. Now back to more music on PEP Radio.